So I'll be honest, I really don't want to do this video. I'm going to feel kind of vulnerable, which is never very fun. Talk about some difficult things. But even though I know it's not going to have a big reach, I think it's a really important message. And the take home that's going to come from it is going to be pretty instrumental in making sure that I relay the necessary message that you need to finally get the results you're after, and arguably more important, keep those results as well and really make it a long-term sustainable lifestyle. 2024 has probably, at least arguably, been the worst year of my life. I mean, it's been really challenging. And I say this knowing full well that there's a lot of people with a lot more bigger problems than me. And all things considered, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. But I've also been the person who always says, like, I think you should feel your feelings and not minimize your challenges, but also, always focus on what do you have control over and what can you do. But I want to kind of go over what I've gone through, what I'm doing about it, and how it relates to being able to keep the results I have and not fall off plan. Because let's be honest, like, the biggest reason, in my opinion, why most people are never able to get and sustain results is because they're always stopping when life challenges them. Whenever they get into a position where life gets really busy, really challenging, you lose motivation, you don't feel like it, et cetera, et cetera. It's always, we'll stop until I can give 100% and then start again. And you just repeat that cycle forever, never getting anywhere. And I say all the time that really what you do when you're not in a good position, when you can't give 100% and you don't feel good and you're unmotivated and have no drive and things like that, what you do in those times is going to make a much bigger difference in you reaching your goals and sustaining them than what you do when you feel good and can give 100%. It's why I'm always talking about don't fall into the all or nothing mentality. Here's kind of what's been going on with my life. I've had 3 different times where I got really sick for 3 to 4 weeks at a time each time. That, I mean, just knocked me out to the point where, like, even if I tried to train at all, like, there was nothing there, and it was probably doing more harm than good to try to keep pushing through it. And, if you combine 3 to 4 weeks, 3 different times, we're talking about nearly 3 months of not being able to train and just getting totally knocked on my ass. Now that I know more about what's been going on with me, I think I understand why. I'll touch on that in a minute. But there was that. I also suffered a pretty bad shoulder injury that kept me from being able to train pretty much for the most part any upper body for 2 months, basically, as I had to let that heal and go through rehab and stuff. Now we're talking 5 months out of the year, for the most part, couldn't train, or at least couldn't train upper body. So, like, when I had the upper body thing, I did up my leg frequency. I basically doubled my volume on legs during that time. So at least I could do something, right? And that is one of the big things to always focus on when you have these limitations and stuff. There's usually things you can do. There's other ways that you can do things to kind of keep yourself in the game. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I live in Florida, pretty close to the Gulf Coast. I'm only like 2 to 3 miles away from the beaches, and our area got impacted severely by 2 different hurricanes in 2 weeks and just devastated the area. Now, thankfully, my house was fine. We had very minimal damage, just some fence stuff and some things in the backyard outside, but the house overall was fine, so could have been a heck of a lot worse. But the area that we live in, the restaurants and stuff that we love to go to and go along the beach, and all those businesses got wiped the F out. We had friends who had places on the beach and they got completely destroyed, and everyone's waiting on insurances and permits and things that, it's just it's a disaster. And it's really hard to see when it impacts your area where you live that much. And that's been a really difficult thing, and evacuating and dealing with all that has been a challenge. Both of my parents had really serious illnesses, basically both life-threatening things this year. Thankfully, they both were fine and got through it, but that was obviously a challenge. And I know I'm not supposed to say this because I'm supposed to pretend like business is great and I'm the world's greatest coach and I'm so busy that I'm bursting from the seams and I can't handle it. Actually, business has been pretty bad this last year, actually really 2 years. It's really slowed down significantly. It's been a big hit to our finances, and I'm okay overall. Like, if I really think back to when I first started coaching, if I didn't know what happened in the last 10 years up until now, when I first started, I would have been thrilled with where I am right now. So I always try to keep that perspective and be grateful. And that's one thing that's always important when you are struggling is, okay, like, what can you be grateful for to try to keep yourself in a good place? But it's, I've down about maybe 15% from last year, but 30% from 2 years ago. 30% hit, that's tough, right? And, we as humans just love to make progress too. So anytime you're going backwards, even though, like I said, I'm in a good place all things considered, backwards is tough, just like with weight loss goals and stuff. If you start going backwards, it's really hard to deal with. So that's been a challenge. But the biggest thing for me has been, for the last like about a half year, I have just been absolutely miserable, both mentally and physically. And I've been dealing with this digestion stuff, where this is going to be TMI type of digestion stuff, so just be aware. But I think it's important and relevant to what's going on. It's something you always have to consider too if you struggle with digestion stuff. So anyways, starting around the summer, I started having really bad digestion to the point where I essentially had diarrhea all the time, like every day. Like every day I was dealing with this. And I dealt with the same thing back in 2017 and did a bunch of testing and stuff. Everything was fine. Eventually went on a low FODMAP diet, went through a reintroduction phase, figured I had a gluten intolerance, and that solved the problem. Well, now it started to come back again. And it just, even though I was like, okay, maybe I'm being a little bit too lax with things, even when I went back to 100%, like zero gluten whatsoever, it just wasn't fixing the problem. And when you have problems with digestion, it literally impacts everything. People don't understand how big of a difference digestion makes on your body. Physiologically speaking, what happens physiologically also impacts psychological things as well. So I have just been absolutely wiped out. I mean, for months now, I have had so much fatigue, zero energy, zero strength, zero drive, zero motivation. I have no desire whatsoever to go to the gym and get things done. I am wiped the F out all the time and miserable. I mean, it has just been brutal. I don't want to do anything, like even just shooting these videos and stuff. It's like I gotta like really just drag myself to do these things. Boy, it's not fun. And I'm gonna touch more on this in a bit, but I did get a couple tests done last week. I'm still waiting for results. I had a colonoscopy done and an endoscopy. I not only had the problems with diarrhea, but also this really severe, painful bloating and my stomach like knotting and churning. So that's why they did both of those tests. I did go on another low FODMAP diet again a couple months ago, and that has cleared up most of the diarrhea, but the other problems are still there, and all this fatigue and low mental drive and stuff is still there. So the colonoscopy was clear, everything was good there. The endoscopy showed gastritis. They did a biopsy to try to figure out what's going on there, whether it's like an infection or celiac or whatever else, who knows. Kind of hoping it's just an infection, because then they can just clear it up and then I can just go on with my life and hopefully feel a lot better. But it has really impacted me severely to feel so crappy. Like I basically have all the signs of low testosterone, honestly, and I'm not going to get that tested until we figure out what's going on with digestion, get that fixed. And if I get that fixed and then it's an issue, then I'll go get that tested and see if something's going on there. Wouldn't that be something too? All these comments on YouTube I get all the time about steroids and stuff actually have low testosterone. Wouldn't that be something? But anyways, I mean, a lot of signs of low testosterone are things like extreme fatigue and low energy and decreased strength and poor mood and irritability. I'm in a bad mood all the time, and I'm a pretty positive person overall. Most of the time I stay pretty positive no matter what's going on. I just take it in stride. My mood has sucked. I mean, it's been absolutely horrible. We're all adults here. Libido has dropped significantly this year, and that's something that I've actually always had a pretty high libido, awkward or not. It's always been true, and it's just really taken a big hit here. A lot of that could honestly just be malabsorption, right? Like if you have diarrhea all the time, you have malabsorption and you're not getting the proper nutrients to fuel the body, which can cause things like hormones and stuff to get off. So yeah, I mean, it's been really tough to feel like this. And like, do you know how freaking hard it is to get yourself to show up to the gym every single day? Well, every day that I normally train. So I typically train 4 to 5 days per week, pretty much 5 days, most weeks regardless. And even though I've had no desire to do so, I've never been motivated to do so. I've always not wanted to do it. My energy levels have been horrible while I'm there. My strength has been sucky. I've been dragging my ass in there and getting it done consistently. And that is freaking hard to do. That's why I empathize with, I just did a video about menopause, why I really sympathize with that, because it's like, I would imagine menopause is even worse than what I'm dealing with. And I know what it's like. Like, it just is brutal. And it's hard to get yourself to show up. But it's so important that you continue to do so if you want to keep yourself in a decent spot. And I'll overlay a picture of myself right now. Not the greatest physique I've ever had, but hey, like, I think we can both agree, especially for a 45-year-old guy, like pretty decent shape, right? And I've kept myself in a decent spot by continuing to show up. I haven't fallen into the all or nothing mentality. I haven't completely stopped paying attention to nutrition. I haven't stopped working out. I've been continuing to go through the motions. And even though it hasn't been great, it's been enough to keep myself in a decent spot. And that's really the big takeaway message that I want to relay home today with you is, as hard as it is, if you really want to create lasting results, how you feel, what's going on in your life, how busy you are, all these things, they're mostly irrelevant. They really are. Of course, there's gonna be times you're gonna have to back off, and that's okay. I mean, it's so much easier to keep progress than it is to create progress. Whether we're talking about fat loss or muscle building, it doesn't matter. Maintenance is very easy, at least physically, with what to do. With regards to muscle, you can back off your volume significantly, even in half, easily, and still maintain the muscle that you've built. With your fat loss goals, you can go back to maintenance. People are so afraid of maintenance, and they feel like maintenance means you're going to gain a bunch of weight. No, maintenance means you just maintain. You can maybe look at someone like me and say, well, it's easy for you to say when you're already in great shape and things like that, but it's irrelevant. Even if you have 50 plus pounds to lose, it still is huge if you can keep yourself roughly maintaining when you're going through life challenges, so that when you finally are able to turn that dial and hit it 100 again, you're still in a good spot to keep the progress going. Right? Like, it's a lot different than, well, I have 50 pounds to lose, but now life is crazy and I don't, I have no motivation and I'm busy and et cetera, et cetera. So then you say, F it, and then you gain 30, 40 pounds. And now you're coming back trying to lose 90 pounds instead of 50. Whereas if, maybe you might gain 5 to 10 pounds, maintenance in and of itself can be challenging, but it's like you can keep yourself in a range, right? So even if you gain 5 to 10 back, well, at least you're still in a really good spot. Now you come back and now you can hit the next maybe 20 pounds. Right? And then maybe something else happens, and then you keep yourself steady, and then you come back in. And this is how you get continual progress going. But I'm just going to work hard until I can't anymore, and then I completely stop and I go backwards. You're going to be cycling that yo-yoing over and over for the rest of your life, getting absolutely nowhere. And I'm not saying any of this to, like, hopefully it doesn't come across as me sounding like, I think I'm better than anybody else. I'm truly trying to help. And I know this is the biggest struggle I see. I mean, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of people now in the last 10 years. I see the trend. I see the pattern. I see what people struggle with. And far and away, the biggest struggle is when things happen in life and it gets challenging, it's just stop, and then I'll come back again. And life is going to keep challenging us forever. You're never going to be in a position where now you can just, really just give it your all the time for the rest of your life. And even then, like, I've always had a really hard time with the whole, like, I don't have time thing. It wasn't even until a couple of years ago where I kind of figured out why I hated it so much. And it's honestly just because it's kind of insulting, right? Like, you wouldn't say to somebody else to their face, well, the only reason that you're able to get results is because you have more time than me. Would you? I sure hope not. And it's like, you take a look at my client, Alisons. She just did a testimonial for me. She is a mother of 3, all under the age of 4, believe it or not. She works full time, trains 5 days per week. She gets all her cardio done, hits her nutrition day in and day out. She gets it done. And like she said herself, it's hard and she's busy, but she makes time for it because it's important to her, right? And at the end of the day, that's what time always shows us. What is the most important thing to you? And I'm not here to say what your priorities should be. It's ultimately up to you to decide what your biggest priorities are. But if you want to get and sustain results, this lifestyle has to be a big priority. There's no way around it. It has to be. You cannot kind of nonchalantly go about this thing and expect to create results. It has to be a big part of your life. I can't really sugarcoat it. There's just no way to do that. And again, don't take that as you have to be perfect all the time and things like that. No, absolutely not. You can be very flexible, and slow progress adds up to huge progress in the long run if you keep going. And there's times to back off, there's times to dial it in and things, but it just cannot be all or nothing. It can't. That has to just go away. You can't think like that anymore if you want to get anywhere. So how do you do that? How do you get to that new place? Well, part of it, honestly, it just comes down to, and I don't know how to really explain it any better than this, but the process just becomes non-negotiable for you now. Like, you can't look at it as optional. If you look at things like working out as optional, you're going to take the option out every time things get hard, every time you get challenged, every time you don't feel like it, you have low energy, low motivation like I've had lately. I've never really thought, well, should I go work out today? No, it's just time to work out. It's like brushing my teeth. I mean, I've been doing this for 16 years now, so I'm kind of on automatic mode. It might be different for you, but that's got to be kind of the mentality, is like, this is important. This is what I need to do. Like, there's a lot of things in your life that you don't feel like doing, frequently, but you still do it. And why? Because it's important, right? Like, you don't always feel like going to your job, right? But you basically always do, because you know you have to. Why? Because if you don't, you lose your job. If you have kids and you don't always feel like taking them to, I take my son to school every day, to soccer practice most days, like, I get it. It's a lot, but you do those things because they're your children and you love them and you have to support them and take care of them. But you don't always feel like doing those things, but you do it because it's important to you. Well, if your health and fitness goals aren't the same way, it's not going to happen. And I'm not saying that you should be sacrificing all other things for that, but it has to be up there with those things. I remember once I had a client, she didn't last long, maybe only about a month or so. And she really struggled to get anything done. And she kept saying, well, how am I supposed to get my workouts done when there's so many more important things that have to be done? And it's like, well, there you go. If you view everything else in your life as more important than this is never going to happen. This became very evident to me my very first year of coaching. At the time I had like 5 clients. One of them was a single mom going to school and working full time. The other was retired, didn't even have a husband, no kids at home, no job. Week after week after week, the single mom going to school and had a job every single week. Crushed her macros, crushed her training, crushed her cardio, got it done, no complaints. She would talk about how busy she was, but I still got it done anyways. And the next check-in would be from my retired client, who would say, I think I had her on a 3-day per week workout schedule, and she would always be like, I was too busy this week, I couldn't get it done. I was too busy, I couldn't track, I was too busy, I couldn't work out. Like, okay, which one of these two people is actually more busy? And that's why I say, it's not about time, it's about priorities. Yes, it's more difficult for some people. Absolutely. But I promise, no matter how busy you are, there are always examples of people just as and more busy who have more going on that still get it done. And don't insult them by saying that you can't do it because you're busy. Sorry, that probably sounds mean, but I'm just trying to get you to see the light, so to speak, because I know you can do this. But it's so easy to give yourself reasons why you can't if you're looking for those reasons. But anyways, I know it's kind of long and rambling, and I know that not a lot of people are going to be here. Comment below if you're still here. Let me know. But, the big take home, and I know I already said it, but it's a big thing. What you do when life is chaotic is more important than what you do when it's not. Do not fall into the pattern of feeling like, well, I just need to wait until I can give 100%. You will fail for the rest of your life. It's never going to work. Be okay with backing off. Work out less. Be a bit more flexible. Go back to maintenance. Right? Like, there's a lot of things you can do to help during crazy times, but it just can't be this, well, I'll just do nothing. And it especially can't be, well, screw it, you might as well binge my face off, right? Like, no. It doesn't require perfection. Get that out of your mind. I know what it's like to feel exhausted mentally, physically, no drive, no motivation, no energy levels. I'm there. I am right there. I have been that way for 6 months now. It's been rough, but because I've been able to keep myself going despite having no desire whatsoever, I know that when I finally get to the bottom of this and get myself feeling better, I can hit the ground running, and man, it'll be exciting to see what happens at that point. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully it'll be soon. But like I said, it could be a lot worse. It's always good to focus on gratitude during the challenging times. Like, both my parents got sick, but I'm very grateful that it turned out to be okay. The hurricanes were a disaster. I'm grateful that I ended up being okay, and most of the places that we love, they'll rebuild, right? They'll come back. I'm betting anything, the sicknesses I've been through, because I usually don't get very sick. Like, once every couple of years I might get sick. I'm guessing it has a lot to do with whatever's been going on with my digestion, because when that's off, you're more susceptible to get sick. It's just business. Like I said, it's been down a lot, but all things considered, I'm good. Like I said, close my eyes for 10 years, have no idea what happens, and I wake up today and this is where I'm at. I've been doing backflips on year 1 to be where I am right now, even though things are down. What can you be grateful for to try to keep yourself as positive as possible when it's hard to do so? If you're going through the struggles, hang in there, and this too shall pass. Good times are bad. They're never here to stay, and I think that's important to always keep in mind. It's like, I like to say, thrive during the good times, survive the bad times, because they're never here to stay. So it's like, enjoy it when it's good and when you're motivated, but always be prepared for things to turn, because it's going to happen at some point. Don't be surprised by it. It was always going to happen. Like, the option to always stay great all the time, it's just not there. But then when you get down in the dumps and everything's terrible, rest easy knowing that eventually things will turn around again too. It's the ebbs and flows of life. So anyways, I will stop rambling. Hopefully you're having a nice holiday season. After the new year, I'll put together a better, more normal, helpful, educational type video, right?